Men on strike. This is what's really going on, everybody. Men on strike. This and books like it were written over 10 years ago, and I had heard of this book before and dismissed it as this doesn't apply to me, but hell yes, it does. It has to do with how feminism and woke culture has told men that they're toxic, not necessary to women or to children, and men have basically checked out. So let's go into this book a little bit and some of the main concepts. So this book was written by Helen Smith, PhD, a psychologist, and she's writing in the back of the book that American society has become anti-male. Men are sensing the backlash and are consciously and unconsciously going on strike. They are dropping out of college, leaving the workforce, and avoiding marriage and fatherhood at alarming rates. The trend is so pronounced that a number of books have been written about this man-child phenomenon, concluding that men have taken a vacation from responsibility simply because they can. But why should men participate in a system that seems to be increasingly stacked against them? As Men on Strike demonstrates, men aren't dropping out because they are stuck in arrested development. They are instead acting rationally in response to the lack of incentives society offers them to be responsible fathers, husbands, and providers. In addition, men are going on strike either consciously or unconsciously because they do not want to be injured by the myriad of laws, attitudes, and hostility against them for the crime of happening to be male in the 21st century. Men are starting to fight back against the backlash. Men on Strike explains their battle cry. And I think this is so true. I'll go into this book a little bit. This book is mostly based on a lot of anecdotes, and that's why I originally dismissed it when I came across it a few years ago. This was written in 2013. But it explains why 1/3 of men ages 18 to 35 are living at home with their parents, why they're turning to video games and porn instead of asking women out, why they want sex only and not a relationship. A lot of men have just given up and have not developed their masculine qualities so that they don't even have them. So let's go into this book. This is going to be shorter than some of my other videos because I think the summary that I read to you in the back really explains everything pretty well. The first one is the marriage strike, why men don't marry, and a lot of that has to do with the consequences of divorce. The court system, for whatever the factors are, the court system has taken the side of the woman unfairly against the man, that even in cases where the woman seeks revenge by saying the man was a deadbeat father or that he sexually abused the child or her when she made it up, that the man is punished by not having access to his children, by granting the mother more custody than the father, and then, of course, men having to pay the ex-wife's alimony and child support. And men feel very robbed by this. So they're like, why should I marry? So I guess the good thing would be to get a prenup. That's why they don't want to marry. I wouldn't want to get married either. If I were a guy, I would not want to get married because 80% of divorces are initiated by women. And then women know all I have to do is divorce this guy and I get half of his money. And while it might be nice for the woman, it isn't good for the guy. So yeah, that's the biggest reason they don't want to get married. Biggest reason. The real reason many rational men do not marry is that the incentives have changed, and growing up is no longer a reward, but a punishment for men. So why do it? A society that puts women's legal and psychological needs first and men's needs last or not at all is what happens when men get married. The second reason has to do with my body, my choice, your body, no choice. And that has to do with getting a woman pregnant and being responsible for paternity payments, even if it turns out that the child was not legally his. I personally have a problem, though, with these guys that go to court when they found out the child wasn't legally their child and now they're fighting to have the biological father pay. I personally think that's very hurtful to the child. I mean, can you imagine being a kid and thinking, I have a mom and a dad, I'm this happy little kid, and now dad finds out that my mom fucked some other dude. I not only find out he isn't really my dad, which is heartbreaking enough, but this person I thought was my dad is now going to court to say he doesn't want to pay for me and he wants to leave my mom. Yikes, talk about some trauma there. But hey, the guy is entitled to do it, and that is one more of the problems here. So a woman can have sex with the guy. This is what they told the football players. They are like, you have sex with a woman, use a condom and take the used condom with you, because there were cases of women taking the ejaculate out of the condom, getting themselves pregnant, and then suing the athlete for child support. Or a woman coming back 20 years later and saying, here we had a kid. So that men don't have the reproductive rights, and that even if a man in some states, if he wants a vasectomy, needs his wife's permission. Can you imagine a doctor telling a woman she needs to get her husband's permission to have a tubal ligation? Women would be outraged, but yet men have to go through that. And if a woman gets pregnant and the guy's like, hey, honey, I don't want a child right now. This was an accident. The condom broke. He has no say in it. He has no say in it. I know some of this too because my brother has been talking about this for years. And so I've been exposed to these ideas already on how unfair our world has become to men. The next chapter, the college strike, where the boys aren't. I've talked about this before. Many of you may be aware that women in their 20s are out earning men in their 20s, that the majority of college undergraduates are female, and in some schools, largely so. This trend started a long fucking time ago. The U.S. Department of Education published statistics already back in 2007. Oh, in 1996. They already knew about it and they don't care. They're doing nothing about it. Our government knows this is happening. They're doing nothing about it because guess what? The weaker men become, as has already happened during this whole thing, where we had to stay indoors. The weaker men become, the more the government can step in because men are not doing it. Summers notes, Christina Hoff Sommers, in her provocative book, The War Against Boys, written in 2000, wrote that the numbers for men in college were already taking a nosedive and had been for many years. She notes that in 1996, how many women were in college versus men? 8.4 million women, 6.7 million men. 8.4 million women, 6.7 million men. She added that the U.S. Department of Education predicted that by 2007 there would be over 9 million women in college and 7 million men. The author of this book looked up the National Center for Education statistics for fall enrollment, and she saw 7.8 million men enrolled and 10.4 million women. Since 1988, the number of females in post-baccalaureate programs have exceeded the number of males. Excuse me. Yes. So there you go. And since women usually want a man that's more successful than them, that also causes a problem in our dating pool. A woman with a college degree typically wants to marry a guy with a college degree. So there are fewer of them out there. So now, why aren't boys going to college? I already have talked about this for a long freaking time. My sons happen to be good in school, but a lot of boys have trouble sitting still. But even so, boys are more rambunctious and active. They're supposed to be. And school is designed for girls because you're supposed to sit in a chair and read and write and listen to a female teacher. We don't have enough male teachers. We don't have enough activity. And making kids sit in chairs is not that good. I like Montessori better, where the children actually can move around a lot. They're more self-resourced in what they do. They use their hands and their bodies. And when they're done with their work for the day, they can go in special corners or go outside and they can play. I also think that we need to bring back more PE. Kids should be outside running every day, running, playing, and climbing. We need to bring more carpentry and woodworking and art and movement and tug of war. Tug of war is now eliminated because it's too rough. Playgrounds are eliminated because you could hurt yourself. You know, in the endeavor to keep kids safe, we've taken away the chance for them to explore and play, and this has really hurt boys a lot. Then you get to universities, and universities have become woke cultures that are pushing agendas that are very feminist leaning and very like liberal leaning. So if you're a man that's more physical or more conservative, you don't have a place there. You get there and you're taught that boys are rapists. Listen, if campuses were really that full of rape, parents wouldn't be sending their girls there. So they try to scare people. They try to make men seem like these potential rapists. And a lot of men are saying, we don't really like the culture. We don't unless they're getting like a degree in engineering, technology, or science or math, they're not wanting to go. And I think a lot of them are saying, I don't want to go into all that debt. Furthermore, in high school, they don't encourage the trades anymore. It's like everyone should go to college. So a lot of boys are just checking out. They don't want to do it. Yeah. I think that's pretty much what she says in this book, too. According to Summers, schools today tend to be run by women for girls. Classrooms can be hostile environments for boys. They like action, competition, and adventure stories. Those are not in favor. Games like tag and dodgeball are out. Tug of war has become tug of peace, and male heroes have been replaced by girl power. Boys even receive lower marks by female teachers, according to research done for the London School of Economics Center for Economic Performance. I totally agree with all of that. Now, another factor too is the median annual earnings for men. I'll put this chart up, but I think you guys pretty much already know. Let's see. That wages have been flat since the 70s due to outsourcing, automation, and more money, elimination of benefits, more and more money going to the upper echelon, and then the lockdown made things even worse. The middle class is being eroded. wages are flat, and a man can no longer earn. See, it used to be that a guy could graduate from high school, get a job as in the union, in machinery. He could buy a house and support a family. We've had so much inflation in housing and so much deflation in wages, or like wages have gone down. And the things that have gone up the most are not counted in the inflation index, which is housing, education, and healthcare. And a man can no longer support a family with a high school degree, even not often with a college degree. A lot of that also has to do with women in the workforce. So the environment has changed, and they're like, it's very discouraging to a man. If he can't provide for a woman or a family, it's like, why even try? Earnings for men have gone down. And if you follow some of these high school, college professors like Jordan Peterson, or Brett Weinstein, that have quit their jobs because of the wokeism on campus, because they were just tired of having to fight against wanting to spread truth and teach facts, because it doesn't fit the agenda of the schools. I think that a lot of the tech companies and the schools are very more like left-leaning, and wokeism and feminism, and men can be women and men can get pregnant, and women are really boys, and we're a they and a them. And I think that Brett Weinstein finally got ousted because he said having a Black person's day was racist, or having a white person's day was racist. I don't remember, something racist. And he and his wife have a podcast I listen to a lot. Like, it's all become so politically correct that you can't even teach anything anymore because you're called a racist or a bigot or something. Like, you can't even teach evolutionary psychology. You're called a bigot or an anti-woman person. You can't even say things like men are better at math because now you're sexist. You could lose your job, and men are going, fuck that. Especially because we don't like to sit still all day anyway. Then, in addition to that, men are now subject to so many sexual harassment and campus policies surrounding their sexuality that they're afraid to have much to do with the multitudes of women surrounding them on the average college campus. Women may complain that there are no men available, but while there is a man shortage, the men who are on campus are often reluctant to get involved with their female cohorts because they lack the rights afforded to a common criminal in a court of law. Do you guys remember the 2006 Duke University case, where 3 young men on the lacrosse team were falsely accused of rape by a stripper named Crystal Magnum, and again by the Duke professors and much of the community? And they ended up, I remember that, and I thought they were guilty because of the way that they made these men sound guilty, but they were innocent, they were framed. And so, yeah, that's just how it goes for men on campus. There's more. The next chapter, why does dad stay in the basement? Sometime around 1970, everyone in the United States drank acid-laced Kool-Aid, tie-dyed their brains, and decided fathers were no longer necessary. Now there is a businessman that sued British Airways because he was seated next to a child flying alone on the flight. They came up to him. According to policy, the cabin crew told him that he had to move to a different seat because he's a man and he can't sit next to a child because a man could be a predator. He went after British Airways. Yep. A guy named Bob says, I have been saying for over 15 years now that TV shows and commercials portray men as idiots, morons, objects of ridicule and humiliation. I'm on strike and have been for years now. Women are so full of hatred and disdain for me, and they have been bred with this idea that they are empowered to rule us in every way. Family law has done the same and completely stacked against men gives women total power over relationships and family. There's also the decline of male space. All the clubs that used to be for men only, they got sued because they had to let women in. And they used to be the lower middle class clubs like the Elks Lodge and these different lodges. They've kind of gone away. And then the Boy Scouts, due to the sexual abuse that they did, and believe me, men have done sexual abuse too, they kind of went away too. There used to be all these boy spaces where men could go and talk, and they don't exist anymore. So now, why it matters. So now, people are surprised when men are heading for the exits. Our society, the media, the government, women, white knights, and Uncle Tims have regulated and demanded that any incentives men have for acting like men be taken away, and decried masculinity as well. Now they are seeing the result. Men have been listening to what society has been saying about them for more than 40 years. They're perverts, wimps, cowards, assholes, jerks, good for nothing, bumbling deadbeats, and expendable. Men got the message. Now they're acting accordingly. As you sow, so shall you reap. Men are opting out and going on strike. And that is why we say, where are all the men? That's why we're saying that. But men are just responding to women and society and the legal system and the government and the media and Hollywood telling them that they're toxic. And so men have checked out, and I think along with that, women have become super freaking aggressive, especially on TikTok. I just see some of these clips that people post on YouTube, and then I'm like, don't recommend this channel. I don't want to see these angry, bitchy women, honestly. What happens to a society when so many men, especially young men, are no longer willing or they're unable to participate fully in work and in marriage? Women's improved employment numbers, education, earning power has had the effect of shrinking their acceptable dating pool. And that, ladies, is why we can't find men. Because the more educated and accomplished we are, the smaller is the dating pool. Material resources and occupational status are one way women judge men's mate-worthiness. It's not the only way, but it's one way. And the innate female sexual disposition is to be attracted, and caps, animalistically attracted, to men with higher status and more resources than themselves. And that means that financially independent women and government-assisted women are going to find fewer men in the social milieu attractive. What is the result? Men slowly discover that the effort to win women's attention via employment is not rewarding them the way it did for their dads and granddads, and that now only Herculean efforts to make considerably more than women will give them an edge in the mating market. The male fecklessness that Murray lambasts is actually a rational male response to a changing sexual market where the rewards of female sexuality go disproportionately to charming, aloof jerks over meager beta providers. Yikes. What price will children and society pay when kids grow up without a father or even a male role model because men are afraid to coach Little League for fear of being called a pervert? They have all those stories in there for that coming up, where dads don't even want to coach because they could be called a pervert. And then it has some ideas for solutions, and I'm going to stop the book there. So again, men on strike, and this is happening in all industrialized countries. This is not just in the US. And I think the only solution really is for men to know what's going on, to pursue a trade, or to go to college in a STEM field so they can buckle down and make some money. And for women to be feminine and be the kind of woman that makes a man go, I'm going to step up and be a man to get this kind of woman. I think we have to inspire them But men, you cannot let this happen to you. Uh, and I think we as women need to recognize this trend also. But um, yeah, I see these wounded men. I see these men who've checked out. I see these men who've given up. But I also see men who haven't given up, who haven't checked out, who are still dating and working and making themselves better men. So I don't know the answer, but I think knowing the trend is good and seeing that we don't have to participate in the slow kind of whitewashing of women becoming men and men becoming women. We don't have to allow it. We have to kind of wake up and not let this all happen, I guess. But why don't you guys drop your comments? And thank you for watching my video.